So, Star Trek Into Darkness. I liked it, personally. And without getting any spoilers, which we're going to do in a little bit, because believe me, it's hard to talk about this movie without getting into spoilers. I enjoyed it. My reservations that I do have are in the spoiler territory, and it's really hard to explain those if you haven't seen it. But overall, I still enjoyed the film. It was fun. It took a different direction in a certain aspect, but I like that. But they could have done it better. It carries on very well from the first, well, not the first, but the 2009 Trek film. Is it already 2000? Was it 2009? Is it already that old? Wow. It's a lot of time, and yet it still feels very fresh, very new. JJ Abrams is actually really, really selling me on his new project of the next Star Wars movie. If anything, if you do complain about this not being a good Star Trek movie, you're still going to feel good about him directing Star Wars. And there's little elements in there you're seeing that he kind of really wants to go in that direction. I kind of wonder if he was hearing the rumblings as he was making this movie about that. I mean, it's hard to tell because movies take so long, but down to the looks, down to the more militant tone he gives the Federation, which becomes really ironic later on. But for example, like when I was talking about the visuals, everybody wants to put their own stamp on the uniforms of Star Trek, and he's kind of constrained in that he wants to show, the classic stuff from the series, so they have to wear the red shirts. But whenever they're on planet side, they have them wear these dress uniforms, and the dress uniforms look very similar to the Imperial officers from Star Wars. And you're kind of wondering, you just want to make it, but you just want to make a Star Wars film. But he's getting a chance, and if he can bring that type of visual style more to him, because that's going to pay off in Star Wars. And I think he's even expressed that he really had a true passion for Star Wars. So, in addition to that, there's also the action, which he's showing improvement on. I think it's a good sign that he's getting some of his choppiness and such down. He's refining his action techniques, so that should help a lot. And I think this is set. The music was fine. Special effects were really good. I did not see this in 2D. I did see Brad Jones's review for this, so I might have colored my opinion on it, and I have a very good reason why I don't see it in 3D. It's because basically my theater, if they're not just ripping me off by just showing the 2D version of the film, they really their projectors are not working right for 3D. The last couple 3D films I've seen with them, they don't function. I've heard other people I saw Iron Man in 3D. I did not notice one single 3D effect in that entire movie. And the one before that, I mentioned that in my reviews. But, okay. Performances, everyone did a great job. Everyone basically continued their performance from the first film. Chris Pine, great. Peter Weller, enjoyed seeing him coming back. Benedict Cumberbatch, I should say. Jesus fucking Christ. This man is scary. This guy, this voice, he is going to be one of the new classic villainous actors. Because he is intimidating as hell in this movie. I mean, really. He will just scare the bejesus out of you. I am looking forward big time now to seeing him portray Smaug in the upcoming actually, good thing I clicked on YouTube here. He's not only playing Smaug, the dragon, which his voice coming out of a dragon, that's scary. He's also playing the necromancer, i.e. Saruman. Yeah. Yeah, this is the new classic villainous actor, and he does such a good job of it. Like when he's giving his intimidating speech to Kirk, he's like, "You're like, oh, you guys are in trouble." I mean, it's another case of this great casting all around. Zachary Quinto doing fine. Zoe Saladana, she's all right. I would say probably the weakest out of the cast, but it's a very, very strong cast for the roles they're in. Carl Urban, steals the show again. He really is he is Bones. He is more Bones than the original actor. He is. I'm gonna call it. He is more Bones than John M. Kelly. He does a wonderful job at it. Kudos to the man. He's also just a great genre actor. If anyone really deserves to be in this movie, okay, well, I'll take that back because there are a couple of people that really, when it comes to science fiction, have earned their place in this film. Carl Urban has Chronicles of Riddick, Dread, Doom. He is a big sci-fi fantasy genre guy. He deserves that alone I think has earned him his place in this cast. But even Peter Weller, we got RoboCop as the head admiral running stuff. His Robo Admiral, that's the Joneses called him, and even some of the more minor characters like Noel Clark, who plays a really small role, and I don't think he actually says a line, or maybe just one or two, where he's a there's a terrorist attack in the beginning, and basically Khan uses the fact that he has some sort of sick daughter, which, despite all this advanced technology, his daughter is apparently sick in a coma, uses the curing of his daughter to blackmail this guy into doing a suicide bombing of a Federation archive, which actually turns out to be a secret R&D base. Oh, yeah, we're getting into spoiler territory. Did I say we were getting into spoilers? If I did, okay, then fine. We're going to get into spoilers because, well, let me just finish up with the cast. Simon Pegg, I was kind of worried that he was going to be left out in this one. And at first it looks like it. He's got a nice little scene early hours, like having a really kind of unsensible argument with the captain. They're arguing over that there's new torpedoes on there. Plot-wise, this is one of the weaker plot points, in that to the point where he's like, you're taking on these new proton torpedoes. You're not telling me what this is. I thought we're sounding more like a military. Which, by the way, that they needed to explain that point a little more. I know there was a throwaway line in the first film about Star Trek. The Starfleet's really not a military organization, even though it has a military hierarchy and authority, and their crews have tons of weapons. But it's a peacekeeping and scientific exploration organization, and that's kind of key to the main plot. But at no point does kind of Kirk's character say to him, these new torpedoes are our mission, because that's basically what he was given. He was given these missiles in order to go after Khan, because he's sitting on a planet, and he's basically was told by this admiral to just park yourself off in neutral space, fire these missiles at him, which, by the way, if their plan is to have these torpedoes and you're just going to blow up an area that Khan is in, why did you pack 72 of them? Why not just give Kirk, 5? Even though one would have been necessary, 5. Why give him all 72 of the ones you built? Because I know there's a plan. This is where I said we're getting spoilers. Apparently the rest of Khan's crew, he put into these torpedoes to try to smuggle them out somehow. I don't know what his plan was for that. Apparently he was able to put them into a torpedo, but he couldn't just wake them up. That makes sense. And the Federation didn't bother to take they found out about the torpedoes and the cryo people inside. Oh, did I kind of spoil before I? Yeah, Cumberbatch is Khan. I'll get to that in a second. But since I started talking about this plot point, okay, the Federation is using Khan to build weapons, and I'll get into that in a second. But yeah, there's like, why didn't you just take the people out of the missiles? Wouldn't have been that hard. And then why give Kirk all 72 of them? Because you know what? I'm okay. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it is. I guess he was gonna try to like destroy the Enterprise in Klingon space. So maybe that was his plan. Although he seemed rather hesitant to actually do it. Like he seemed to only be a little bit like, I don't know if I'm going to trust Kirk to do this or not. Because you kind of got, even though they kind of said it's what they were going to do, I kind of got the feeling that he might have let Kirk and the Enterprise go. I don't know. It's an interesting. I'd have to watch it a second time, I think, to pick up on that. But anyway, Scotty just resigns right off of this because he's like, don't know what to get. Yeah, this is not right. And he kind of walks off. And I thought that was going to be it, but it turns out he plays an important role. You know, Kirk calls him back up and says, you know, you might have been right. I need you to check something out. So they do that little thing. So a surprise by. I thought he was going to be the person left out. I was really expecting someone to really be pushed to the back. Maybe Anton Yelchin's Chekhov. Probably the person that got really pushed to the back, where he didn't do too much. He was there for a bit. They put him in engineering to replace Scotty for a while, and replaced him with. That's got to be addressed right there. The replacement. Who I apologize if this person is actually a female, but they kind of replace it like a transvestite. If it's just a beefy looking woman who has a shaved head and really muscular biceps, I apologize, but he's wearing a dress. And he looks like they have breasts, but he looks a little. I mean, let's face it, they've got like androidish looking people, aliens sitting on board. So really, I guess I shouldn't complain so much because it doesn't really, I guess, stand out so much. But still, you're just kind of thinking for a second, like, what the? Oh, okay, we're going that way. Trying to say something, Abrams? I don't know. I don't have a problem with it. You know, personally, it's just I get taken aback for it when they had you take his seat. Oh, that was an interesting little moment I had in this movie. What else? So I suppose we should get to the main Cumberbatch as Khan. Like I said before, a guy is intimidating as all hell. He really. I liked him as Khan. I liked his portrayal as not betrayal, as Khan. The only problem this is really where I'm getting my problem that they had with Khan is you don't get his motivation. Now, my experience with Trek is I actually I don't consider myself a Trekkie, a Trek fan. I've watched plenty of the shows. I enjoy them. I am, of course, a science fiction fan. So. Yeah, I fit into that category, but I'm more of a fan of Star Wars and other series. Although I've watched more of it recently. But growing up, I forget if this was early the Sci-Fi Channel that got a hold of these, or if it was Nickelodeon's TV Land or Nick at Night, or it probably was actually both. But I remember as a kid watching the old 60s Star Trek episodes, but not really watching The Next Generation. Actually, it wasn't until years and years later. Even though it was going on, you know, at me growing up, we didn't watch it in our household. It wasn't like a show that my parents watched, and we were pretty stuck with Nick at Night. And by the time I got old enough to really start looking at other channels and such, it was like TNT when they were having like Babylon 5 on a lot, and I was right in that Babylon 5 generation. And then, of course, by the time I was really, really willing able to watch other science fiction, that was your Voyager era. Not the best. That's a big turn off for anyone trying to jump onto the franchise. I didn't really watch a lot of the Star Trek, Next Generation stuff till later. So for a very long time, my definition of Star Trek was the original series, and I like them. I did enjoy watching them growing up. So when I eventually saw Wrath of Khan, which wasn't again until probably about my high school years, unlike a lot of people, I think I was familiar with who Khan was. There was it was just kind of a random episode. It was one of those series where they did take this like a random episode and like made a big sequel out of it. And so they gave him that portrayal. And the original Khan is supposed to be, and this is kind of where I don't like. One, they kind of said he was responsible for mass genocide, which the point of why anyone tolerates Khan in the original series was that out of all these super genetically engineered supermen, he was one of the few warlords there that wasn't responsible for that, who reigned relatively civilly. I guess you still got treated like second-class citizens if you were not a genetically engineered super soldier. But he was more sophisticated. He ran a rather tight ship empire, and it was more the fact that there's this whole background. Apparently, this was all supposed to be happening in the futuristic year of 1997 or 1999, and I guess his was like one of the last of these super soldier empires to fall, but it mostly fell because the others were genocidal maniacs. Khan ran his ship a little differently. He was Francisco Franco to the Adolf Hitlers and Stalins running around. Not a nice guy, not a government you want to live under, but not as bad as the others. I'm sure that's debatable to many Spaniards, I understand. But they call him, and that's why I don't like when they kind of mention he's just a genocidal maniac. And that's the kind of the problem, because this series needs to have, or this movie needed to have one villain. Instead, it had two. Of course, Peter Weller's Admiral was the kind of the villain for a good chunk after like the halfway point. You basically, after the halfway point, it starts off with Khan under his pseudonym being the villain who they're mostly just chasing. And then about the halfway point, it turns and we have Admiral Robocop be our villain, when it turns out that this is all kind of a ploy so he can start a war between the Klingon Empire, because he's kind of going in that war is coming eventually, better to do it now. And also that he's got this whole thing where he wants to turn Star Trek into a full-fledged military, which is something even from the previous series. I think DS9, that was kind of the point where they created like a ship. Was it the Defiance, I think? Maybe? Or Defiant? Where it was the first ship that Starfleet actually designed as an actual warship. And it's like this tiny thing, and it's got incredible firepower for something its size. And kind of just goes to the point that if Starfleet really doesn't think militarily, and when they do, it can be scary. And so this Admiral, not only does he start Section 31, which I remember from the series is kind of like the ultimate Black Ops guys, but also is he basically wants to create fully militarized fleet, and by that he actually constructs a dreadnought that's bigger than the Starship Enterprise, has more weaponry, and could ultimately is not designed for anything else other than war. So really just one person is all that's absolutely necessary to command a thing. Unlike all the other ships, which apparently do require a large crew. You figure that far in the future, almost any ship should be able to be controlled by this one person. But he takes over for then a quarter, like the remaining half. So you take for a quarter of the entire movie, for half of the remaining half, he's the villain. And right around that time is when we get revealed we're Khan. And I think the film could have spent that time better building up more of Khan's backstory, exactly what type of villain he is. That he's not a complete genocidal maniac. He's that very scary. There's an element of having an absolutely batshit evil villain, because you believe they're not really real, and that someone this evil has to lose in the end. Khan's the type of evil that you could see winning, and that's what scares you. He's the type of guy you can actually picture not only taking over the world and controlling the world, but doing it well enough to really maintain power and for people to actually accept it. There's a scary element to that it's very hard to achieve, but when you do, it's a frightening one, because it's a competent villain. It's tougher to write than you think, without going into the audience completely rooting for them, the villains. Sometimes you fail at that. Sometimes you write them too good to where the audience is kind of going, I'd rather have these guys running the world, because they seem like they do a way better job. They just would make everyone kind of wear we all have to wear red shirts now or something like that. Basically what it comes down to, a lot of failed villains when they do that. It's like, oh no, we have to all wear kind of military-esque uniforms. But other than that, things seem to be running pretty good. So it seems like a small trade-off. But that's really where the fault comes from this film, is they could have done a lot more to build up the menace of Khan. And based on the ending, though, I guess they could always bring him back. Hopefully not for the third one. If they do a fourth one, maybe I would be okay with them bringing Khan back. But because unlike the series, or unlike Wrath of Khan 2, where they kill him, they at the end don't kill him. And even though I guess you could sort of argue that up until that point, he was only going after Star Trek, which were holding his Starfleet, which was holding his crew hostage, and mostly aimed at Admiral Robocop's organization. He blew up a base that was a Section 31 base that was developing illegal weapons. He did attack the Starfleet officers. That's that scene where he kind of blows everything up. But yeah, you could argue, you could kind of buy at that still throughout up to this one point that he's just attacking this military, despite what they want to call themselves, at the very least a paramilitary organization that had taken him hostage, is not very interested in his protection, and is hunting him down, is considering him an enemy combatant. But then at the end, he gets the Admiral's dreadnought. It's damaged enough. He just fucking goes, fuck it. I guess he thinks his crew is dead. He just, screw this. I'm gonna kamikaze this bitch. And he takes out about half of San Francisco. He's aims it at Starfleet headquarters. He's just rides the SOB in, and this is actually a scene that tricked a lot of people they showed this in the trailer, and a lot of people assumed that this ship was the Enterprise in the trailer that you see crashing into the ocean. Well, I guess starships are like rocks, because this thing skips off the bay after it does that and starts crashing in, taking out about half of San Francisco, killing hundreds of thousands, if not millions, in the process, because it lays waste to miles of San Francisco. And I was kind of going, if that's the way you want to show, I'm kind of disappointed, but if that's the way you're going to show Khan going down, it's like, as a villain, Jesus, having him just take out, that's villainous, man. He's killed thousands. But no, he's not done. He has a little fight with Spock there, which is an okay action scene. But the reason Spock's going after him is they then did As the Enterprise is crashing to Earth at one point, they do the scene. Since this is kind of where it's not really a true remake of Wrath of Khan. It's using the same character, but going with the idea that the timeline has been changed. So because I guess the timeline has been disturbed enough, somebody else intercepted Khan's ship. It was the Admiral, I believe. Thought him out and set this whole thing up. And so, the crew is not going to, the Enterprise is not going to run across Khan as they did in the original series. So it does really go its own way with that, other than trying to take the same character. Although, like I said, I really wish they kind of went more into his character. Even if it's this, they could have gave us flashbacks. Khan's one of those great villains that you kind of want to sympathize, at least a little bit. Although Spock kind of cheats, and I'll talk about that in a second. But they do the scene. This is where it does get into copying Wrath of Khan. But they reverse it, I guess, because, timeline has been changed. So in this one, it is Kirk that goes into, like, the radiation room, gets infected with radiation, and dies, and they have their scene where it's actually quite a good acting scene between Kirk and Spock, and the scene fits in with the overall theme or character arc of the film, which is kind of articulating their friendship and understanding that there's commitments that if you become good friends, there's a certain extra commitment you have to somebody. Which is Spock's big arc for this movie. Technically, I guess really Spock has thematically normally the bigger arcs about finding humanity. But they do it. He gets angry, and it's Zachary Quinto that does the Khan. And I know, watching Brad Jones, they didn't like it doing. At that point, you're obliged to do the Khan line, and I didn't laugh at it like it's mocking. I was like, oh, he's doing it. He's doing it. Yes, he's doing it. It's a different yell. And I guess it doesn't exactly feel natural for the scene, but I guess it's obliged to do it. Maybe, you know what, maybe if afterwards he did more of a blind rage attack after, because afterwards he gets his gun, he's like, I can beam you down, and you can see he's pissed, but he's not that, I'm gonna kill me something type of rage. Like, if he was like that, you'd be like, oh, then it would feel like, that would feel justified. So I think they really should have done more of just Spock getting this incredibly, just like, boom, punching in the coordinates himself, like literally just like punching the button for him to beam down and to find Con Air and hunt him down, just like really chase him savagely, like right from the get-go as soon as he did the scream. I think that it would have played better. He's still a little too cool. I mean, I guess he's Spock, but you have to. I think they sometimes play him way more strictly than Nimoy ever did when it comes to the emotion thing. Even back before they established him as a half-human, like when he was supposed to be originally he was a full Vulcan, everyone assumed. So, yeah, he was the calm one, but there were still elements where he'd be like joking around a bit, smile, enjoy some music. But I like this scene. I did not mind it. I got a nice little like smile when he saw, oh, it's coming, it's coming. Was there anything else? There's probably something I said I was going to talk about later and I forgot to get to it. We talked about Admiral RoboCop, whatever you want to call him. Yeah, to the ending. Oh, I guess, and there's a nice little there's nice little references. Like they have the Tribble, which they figure out then how to Oh yeah, I do need to talk about this. The resurrecting of Kirk. I guess they realized they had to do one of the main cast dying but at the same time, I guess they realized, we're going to be stuck just repeating the old movies if we just leave them dead. If we just leave Kurt dead and next one's the quest to resurrect him, not gonna go well. I guess they want to keep that flexibility. So they figured out that if you could use Khan's blood, or you inject him with Khan's blood, it'll actually would cure him, because they did the same thing with the Tribble. And I guess it is established earlier when he uses his own blood to cure that Starfleet's officer. Yeah, what's his name's? Our Doctor Who alumni, who is lost in this huge cast list from IMDb. Yeah, I'll find it sometime. Noel Clarke. Yeah, they did establish that early on, I guess. But yeah, they bring him back, and then of course Bones figures this out, uses, and he gets Spock. That's why they say they need him alive. Which, if you technically, I guess you wouldn't need him alive if all you need is his blood. Spock, just don't disintegrate him. I mean, you can bring him back alive if you want, but if you just snap his neck or something, I can just drain his blood out. That, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, if the problem was this is the super soldier blood, all of Khan's crew were like super soldiers, so why didn't he just suck it out of one of those guys? Would have been helpful. But so they had their, I guess, so they resurrected him. Speaking of the Tribble, there's a couple other little references throughout. They mention a Gorn, which, based on that, that description, I guess the Gorn are not canon with the game that came out. With thank God. I was hoping to see the Gorn. I had always liked those the big lizard creatures. We get to see more of the Klingons. There was, of course, the cutscene from the first one. They keep that continuity, so I guess we can assume that deleted scene is actually in continuity. It just wasn't shown. But they were in the helmets, which I think looked pretty cool. But this time they actually do show them. They take off the helmet. It looked a little weird to me. I don't know why. Because it did look mostly practical effects. With the makeup, at least, with them. And again, that particular scene is pretty awesome because Khan then comes out wielding this giant freaking gun. Like he ripped this thing off of an actual fighter. And it's just like holding it like freaking what's his name from Predator? Jesse Ventura from Predator. It's bigger than that gun. He's just wielding this thing like a toy. And this pretty much wipes out all these Klingons himself. So even though we had little hints of the Klingon, we don't get to have a movie about them, which is a shame because they keep on teasing us. If they do a third one, they really need to bring that and make a movie about the Klingons, where the Klingons are the main villains. You did the first one where you had Romulans. There was mention of Klingons. Now, we got to now have scenes with Klingons in this one. Can we actually feature them for once, please? Unless you want to feature the Gorn instead, which I'm okay. I'm all for that. So they freed that up, but because at the end though, this is the point I was about to make earlier. Yeah, so Khan does eventually want to doing this crashing, killing all these hundreds of thousands of people in San Francisco, and then at the end, when you could now really justify, okay, before you only hit military targets, or at least we could, if you really want to argue, you can argue at least paramilitary targets. After that, you've just killed a lot of innocent civilians who are not part of Starfleet, who are not uniformed. military or paramilitary personnel. At that point, you really should have just tried the guy. No, instead they just decide to stick him back in his can, his little ISO thing, and put him in like a vault somewhere on Earth. And maybe their hope is that they'll use him in a later movie, which I would be okay with. If you want to have the Wrath of Khan be later, where he comes back, it's like, you guys messed me up. You are dead. Now, that would still be hard to do because, in Star Trek 2 at least, the original Star Trek 2, the motivation was, you stuck us on this planet, Kirk, which was not as livable as you thought it was, and that I lost close personal friends of mine as a result, or my family, my lovers. You're gonna die. Yeah, that was the other thing I remember from the original series, to the point where he actually had Khan in the original series actually convinced a member or two of the crew to join him. That's how he was kind of gaining control of the ship. So he wasn't they mentioned he was a genocide. Oh, and I have to mention this little cameo. Leonard Nimoy cameos real quick, where Spock's sitting there. He's in command of the ship at this point because Kirk's flown off with Khan to the other starship. And I don't know. They don't establish when or how or why he's gonna figure that he might have run across Khan in a future timeline. It's kind of weird that he does this, because I guess because it's the first time he's been that desperate since the two met. But he decides to call up original Spock, and he kind of goes like, Spock, by the way, in your future time, have you ever run across a Khan before? Which, by the way, they don't use his first name until Khan mentions it, which is kind of weird, because he's a historical figure, since he was such a powerful warlord. He had his own empire, which right there should have sent up red flags to at least one or two people. It's like, you're that Khan? Wait, the Khan from the history books? Which again would have been good to give us some backstory right there. They could have actually had the scene from the original story, where once they reveal which Khan he is, you could have had the scene with Kirk and Spock. Pretty much went to how they kind of go, well, he is a wanted warlord. He's part of these super soldier programs. And I remember in that episode, Spock then points out, yes, but unlike all the others, there was no mass genocide or horror during his reign. He was considered somewhat fair, if not running a democracy. At the very least, he wasn't all bad. See, right there, they could have had the same scene, which would have been a nice callback to the original episode as well as to Star Trek 2. But anyway, he calls him back, and Spock, after basically going, I told you I can't reveal anything. With that being said, though, he's the most dangerous SOB we've ever faced. Good one, Spock. And he also does kind of reveal his first name as well then. So, maybe we'll see Khan return in the future. At the very least, I think this is going to be the film that's going to establish Cumberbatch as a new go-to guy, that if you just want someone that's going to intimidate people, this is an intimidating character, go to this guy. I think this good setup, and then his portrayal probably in the upcoming Hobbit films, are going to solidify that. He's going to be up there with Ben Kingsley as, oh my, that's Cumberbatch, that's the bad guy. Oh, by the way, I did there is one scene where I was wondering if they were going to show this or not, but RoboCop gets his head popped by Khan. They cut away, but you hear the sound effect, he's just crushing on his skull, and it's like, ah! Then it cuts away, and you hear the little which, nice little moment that they were able to get past the sentence. They couldn't show it, but to get more on point, like I said, I'm actually kind of looking forward to seeing who they're going to get now in Star Wars. And I guarantee you, somebody from this crew is winding up in the new Star Wars film. Carl Urban! Please be Carl Urban. Carl Urban deserves to be in Star Wars. And considering he is such a genre actor, he deserves it. Be interesting to see if anyone else makes the transition over. I know The Rock's been campaigning to get into that film too. We'll see who else might pop up, including maybe some of the smaller actors I could see maybe taking up a bigger role. More precisely, if I can find him in here. Give me 1 second. Where's his name? He plays Scotty's little friend there. What is his name? Found him. The character, the actor Deep Roy, who was he was Scotty's that little guy that followed Scotty around. He also saw him real quick as that really tiny Egyptian guard in Revenge of the Fallen. He was the Oompa Loompas in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. He has got to be in the Star Wars film. I guarantee you he's going to be in there because he probably as an Ewok. There's going to be an Ewok. It's going to be him. Just because he's probably one of the few actors you can get that's that small, but can do the acting. Is willing to do that type of stuff. He's very expressive with doing behind the makeup stuff. And now since he's worked with Abrams twice, I wouldn't be surprised if Abrams I need a little alien dude. Let me go call up Roy Deep here, or Deep Roy. Kind of weird. He's Kenyan by birth. Huh. But yeah, so I'm hoping we saw a really good preview. Unlike George Lucas, you saw a lot more practical effects. Yeah, there's a lot of CGI in here. Don't get me wrong. But we also saw a great deal of of real life locations as much as possible. I think even more so than the previous films. Abrams is going to probably add a nice little level of realism, especially when it comes to Star Wars, which you don't need as many. You can set it on the desert planet and just go and film in Tunisia. So I think we're really seeing the training program, or the training for Star Wars, come from Star Trek, as much as Trekkies probably loathe that ideal. But like I said before, guaranteed you're going to see some of Abrams' more usual cast members. I'm hoping Urban, he decides to go to for something in this, hopefully because he's just a genre guy. I would love for him to be like the new Han Solo-esque character, like if he's the new scoundrel. Well, who knows if they're even going to follow those archetypes. But Deep Roy, almost certainly going to be in there as some sort of little guy. Who knows? We might see Zachary Quinto pop up. Chris Pine might be in there as a Jedi. Who knows? We'll get to see Peter Weller in there. I'd love to see Peter Weller in some more stuff. I think I've rambled on quite long enough. I think the next big one coming out is Hangover 3. I'm going to probably catch that. I've seen the others, so I might as well see this one too. Maybe they'll be doing something different this time. After that, we got a bunch more stuff. The summer movie season has just begun. So, I'm looking forward to them. If you like the review, appreciate it. Please like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. If you didn't like it, please leave some constructive criticism. I'm always open towards it. And see you next time.